Hey guys, so like I told you in the announcement, I was going to make a quick video this week for you about how the SQL engine actually takes a query that you write and parses it out and returns the information to you. This I don't believe is covered in your coursework anywhere, but it's one of those things that I feel is important because I think if you're going to write queries and we're expecting the information to get back, you kind of want to know how the engine takes that query that you write and parses it and sends it back to you. Parsing means take the code, turns it into machine code, and returns the information. So we're not going to turn anything into machine code here. We're just going to look at a simple query like the one that's on the board, and then how the information is returned back to you by the engine. So here we go. So we're going to go into the presumption that we've got two tables. We've got a customer table and we've got a location table. The customer table has several columns, but there's only two specific ones that we're interested in. Is the customer ID, has a name column, and a location ID, okay? The customer ID is your primary key, and location ID is going to be a non-clustered index. Okay, so we've got two indexes on this table that we're concerned about. The location table has a location ID. It has a city column, and then a state column, which is a char2, and there's an index on that column. So there's an index here, which is a primary key, an index here, which is a primary key, and two non-clustered indexes here on the state and location ID, respectively. Okay. The customer table, let's just say, for sake of argument, has 125,000 customers listed in it, and let's say the location table, for sake of argument, has 1,000 locations. I like nice round numbers, makes life a lot easier. Okay, so let's look on how the engine takes your query and returns this information to you. Well, the first thing that has to happen is everything has to come off the disk and go into active memory, because you can't do anything with any data that's sitting on a disk. It has to be in active memory. So when you're looking at a query, the query goes from the largest amount of data to the smallest amount of data. So what it's going to do is it's going to pull those two tables. It's going to take the customer table and the locations table and pull them both into memory, all of them. Okay, so it's going to take all 125,000 rows of customer and all 1,000 rows of location and pull that into your active memory. Okay, most RMDBS engines, SQL, Oracle, all of them, MS SQL, Oracle, all of them have memory that is dedicated to just that engine. It's done in different ways, but you know, in SQL there's an allocation, in Oracle there's a memory space, so that's just allocated specifically for that database engine to use on that system. So all that information is pulled in there, okay? And then we work from there. Now the next thing that it does, it's going to do the most efficient way to whittle things down. So the next thing it's going to do is going to look at this where clause. Okay, because that where clause is going to take this table and whittle it down quite a bit. So it's going to go, okay, where B state equals UT, which is Utah, and so that's the location table. So it's going to look at the location table. It's okay, there are 1,000 entries into there, and it's going to find which ones are Utah, and it's going to take those and get rid of everything that's not Utah. Okay, so let's say in the locations table there are 250 locations that are in Utah. Okay, so the engine's going to go, okay, we don't need these other 750. We're going to just get rid of those and just keep those 250 ones right here in our little bubble. That is now my locations table. Nothing else matters. Okay. Then what it's going to do, and when all that's done, and when we talk in another video, we're going to talk about how indexes work behind the scenes and how the engine works behind the scenes as far as like storing things to the physical disk. So we're going to talk more about how indexes work behind the scenes. But for right now, let's just say, okay, so the index done, boom, 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 boom. We got the 250, we're good to go. And then it's going to say, okay, that's done. Now we got to go to this inner join. So we're going to join the locations table on with the customer table on location ID. So we got 250 IDs over here that match Utah, and then we're going to go back over here and we're going to say, okay, there are only 3,500 customers that are actually have the ID of Utah. Now just in case, I normally teach this in front of a live class. I'm trying to presuppose the questions that you would have. So why are there 250 location IDs? Well, because like 250 different cities in Utah, you know, American Fork, Spanish Fork, Salt Lake, Provo, Logan, Centerville, Greenville, whatever. So they're all going to be different location IDs, if that was a question. If that was not a question, just that's why there's 250 of them. So 250 IDs and location match up to 3,500 locations of the customer, and so everything else can be dropped. So these other several 100,000 columns, now there's only 3,500 rows in customer and only 250 rows in location. So it's whittled it down. So it's gone from using the from clause, grabbing both tables, to the where clause, limiting the locations table, to the on clause, where it's limiting the customers table. So now it's got the amount of rows that actually need to be done, right? And then it'll go to the select clause and say, okay, you want name and city. So boom, it'll grab those two, join it on the link, the behind the scenes, it'll go on location ID, see where these all match up, and then it will return 3,500 rows of where the two tables match. Okay, so that is basically how a select query is parsed. Insert and delete queries are pretty much what they think they put something in at the bottom and then have to delete them out. We're going to talk more about insert and delete queries when we talk about how indexes work, because that's really where those come more into play. But I want to make sure that you guys understand how this select process works, because when you understand this, it suddenly becomes very important how indexes are placed, what columns are indexed, and how big your tables are. Because if you've got a table that's a terabyte in size and you got to pull that into RAM, that's going to cause some interesting complications. And it's not very often that I've seen a terabyte a table that's a terabyte in space, but I've seen it because of really, really bad planning. And we'll talk more about that later when we talk about table design. So because this is recorded and I can't ask for any questions right now, I will post this to the forums, and please ask any questions underneath there in the forums. I will try to arrange an hour sometime this week or next where I can talk to you guys in teleconference to answer any questions you have, probably over in Google Hangouts, because that's the easiest place for us to get to, or Zoom, because Zoom is working too. So I can answer any questions on this. Or you can catch me through Discord or Hangouts or wherever. But just to kind of recap, when you're running a SQL query, a T-SQL query in a select form, the first thing the engine does, it grabs all the information from all the tables. Then it applies any where clauses to those tables. Then it applies any on clauses in the case of joins. If there's no joins, obviously it's not going to do an on clause. And then it returns the columns that you asked for. So it doesn't go select from, in, or join where. It doesn't do that. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please again reach out to me via the Discord group or via the comments section on the course website. Thank you very much and have a great day.